The all-new WMEG Radio.
Good afternoon, everybody out there in the listening audience. Welcome. I'm very happy to be back here. Today is June the 8th. I just had a very, very spectacular weekend. I'm just so happy to be back here on the air with DJ Rock doing his thing over there on the side. And
what up, Cutter?
He just got back from sunny California. Was just telling me about the temperatures out there going up to about 113.
113.
Yeah, but let me tell you this. Hey, look, over the weekend, I drove to NYC. Yeah, I went up to New York City, and going up New York, the temperature went to 100 degrees for the first time. So I can say this is the first time that I've seen 100 degrees on my thermometer, in the car. But that's real heat. When it says 100, like I'm saying, a lot of these other thermometers, I don't know where they have them. I think they're close by water or somewhere. It's going to be a little cooler. But in that car on Interstate 95 in the New Jersey Turnpike, I saw 100 degrees. It was smoking. It was I'm telling you, it was temperature. It was hot. And in addition to that heat, what the buzz was, the cicadas. Okay, so I'm back again. I talked a little bit last week about the cicadas and, these crazy insects. They go down and spend about 17 years down in the ground and then decide to come up. And I was trying to figure out what sort of time system were they actually using to know when that 17-year time span had expired. How do they know when to come up? And so I had to do some research. And, just with my research, what I discovered is, these are some really amazing little creatures. And what they do, when they come up, they're only here for a short period of time. Very ephemeral. They're here basically to mate. And once they mate, that is it. When they come, they're here to mate. And the bad thing is after they mate, the male got to die. Wow. So he comes. They do their thing. They mate. I guess the female is fertilized, whatever. But the male, he flies, and I guess that's really they fly around all in the cars and everything. It's so crazy, after mating and everything, and then they gotta die. The male's gotta die. And from my understanding, I think I got this right. I think the female goes back and goes in the ground, or somehow that egg and larvae goes down in the ground. But one of them, they go down in the ground and they go way deep down, and I guess the egg hatches, and after that they'll start a journey back up. And this thing is so timed that the interval is 17 years. I won't say on the dot, but that's just amazing to me that an insect is capable of doing that. It just lets you know, with the creation, just how magnificent it is, and it's just so many things beyond our comprehension that we don't understand. You understand? So, just amazing. But also, like I say, made the trip to New York, and just there for a very brief moment. I had to pick my daughter up, who actually attends Columbia University. She's doing her graduate program at Columbia University, and we had to go pick her up and turn right around, still being very cognizant of COVID-19. Even though I must say I've had a couple of vaccinations, but, still we're just being very, very conscious about everything. And so let's just go in, make the pickup, get her back in the car, and come on back down to Maryland. So that's what we did. That was what my weekend was like, but very enjoyable because honestly, that's the longest trip that I've had, I think, since this whole COVID episode has occurred. So and I'm used to driving. I'm used to doing play. I make lots of trips, in various places, and I'm just used to driving. But again, just being in that car for more than 4 hours. I think it took us over 5 hours to actually get there. Everything flowed until we got to New York City. But once we got there, the Big Apple is the Big Apple. It was just traffic all over the place. So that was that. That was that part of my weekend. And I can tell you another, just shifting gears. Let me shift gears. I am I don't even know how to say it, but I am one of the biggest fans of basketball that you have in the country. And I guess maybe this is partly from growing up in North Carolina. In North Carolina, the sport that people play 365 days to the year is basketball. If there's nothing else to do, you can go and hoop. And so I just fallen in love with it from way back, and I followed it going all the way back to my all-time favorite team being the Lakers. And, I take this all the way back to when Wilt Chamberlain and they had Jerry West. He happens to be the logo for the NBA. When you see that guy going in to make a layup, that's Jerry West. But I was watching the Lakers all the way back then, and Gail Goodrich being his other point guard that played with the team, and Elgin Baylor, he was right here from Washington, D.C. He's from D.C., Elgin Baylor, one of the greatest of all times. So that's my thing. I love basketball, and I've been getting into the playoffs. I don't know how many of you out there have actually been watching, but the team that I have followed the most and cared about the most, the Lakers, are out. Now, I must say, let me clarify everything. The present Laker team is not my Laker team. However, they're out. Okay, and wow, I feel sorry for a lot of the present day Laker fans, those who just felt like it was no way that they could be beat, like their stars are just too good, and they can't be defeated. But I think Chris Paul and that crew over there coming out of Phoenix, Arizona, had another story. They had another story altogether, and they came out and they played their hearts out. And I'm seeing a guy, even Chris Paul, I was wondering in that last game, because first I think Anthony Davis got hurt, and then Chris Paul got hurt. Both of them went out, and I'm like, oh my God, well maybe that makes it even. Two of the stars go out. Okay, they're back at point zero. They're neutral. They're equal again. But Anthony Davis, and I really feel bad for him, because I think Anthony Davis is one of the greatest basketball players ever played. Just to have that height and to have the ability to handle the ball and move around and shoot the way that he does. From my understanding, he used to be a point guard or a number two. Maybe he played second guard or whatever. And his ability to handle the basketball, he maintained it. But when in high school, he grew very tall over a very short period of time, but maintained his ability to handle the rock. And so today, Anthony Davis, well, I won't say today because he's hurt today and he's out. But Anthony Davis is obviously one of the greatest basketball players I've ever seen. And, just sorry that he had to go out. But the bottom line, it's over. The Lakers are the same as I am today. And just like DJ Rock, spectators. They are spectators today. And then again, just watching this other team. Well, let me finish. Let me talk about Phoenix. Let me finish about them before we get into our program. But anyway, Phoenix appears to be on a mission, with Chris Paul. Chris Paul is one, they call him the master, the greatest manager, of just handling the court and managing the court. And I can say that maybe there's some validity to that, simply because here's this guy. He's been in the league for a long time. He goes to a team that hadn't made playoffs, I think, in 11 or 13 years, for a long time. You know what I'm saying? They hadn't made a playoff at all. And he goes there and they pick up a new coach. And this guy they got coaching, he's absolutely phenomenal also. But for regular season, Chris Paul's management and with some of the new personnel, they were able to come in with the second best record in the NBA. And you know what I'm saying? I'm going to clap for him right now. I think that was great. I actually think that the coach should have won the Coach of the Year Instead, he didn't get it. It was given to the New York Knicks coach, which he had a very good year also. But I feel if I'm looking at the both, in which we all know New York Knicks hadn't made playoffs in a long time. And they happen to make it, which is very, very good. And they've got, the city who are covet that team so much. They're really into them. And so he's turned it around and brought some faith back to the city of New York. But still, if I look at his accomplishments versus the accomplishments of the coach from Phoenix, I would say that the coach for Phoenix was actually better. So again, this is my personal opinion. I think that he was coach of the year in my book. I'm going to check him off as coach of the year. And unfortunately, I can't think of his name, but he's a bad brother, and they really got that team together. So again, last night, I'm looking at it. Phoenix is playing Utah. And I'm looking at Utah's team, and they came out, and I had to call my buddy, and we just, texting back and forth about what's going to happen. And at the time, Utah was actually beaten. They were whipping up on Phoenix. And Phoenix, something got into them. I don't know what it was, but they turned that around, and I think they ended up winning the game by close to 20 points. So Phoenix is on a roll. I think they actually blew out the Lakers the last 3 games they played. They won by wide margins. So Phoenix is really on a roll, and I'm curious to see how far they're actually going to be able to go. So again, kudos to them. Now, my favorite team right now, who am I putting my money on? I'm putting my money, this as a businessman, okay, making a business bet. Okay, I'm going to put my money on the Brooklyn Nets. Everything about Brooklyn Nets I like. Now, I know throughout the year, the big three weren't able to play together for that many games. I think it was only 8 games, but I think that the level of play that the big three actually has, they don't actually have to play that much together. I think once they make their minds up to go and play ball, they're going to do it. And one thing where they were being criticized throughout the year was they're not playing defense that well. Well, let me tell you this. I think that Brooklyn Nets were waiting until the playoffs to exert that extra energy needed to play defense. And even not playing defense at a high level throughout the year, they still came in second in the East, only 1 game behind the team that was first. Well, anyway, Brooklyn Nets, my God, they came and they really put on a performance game 1 and game 2, blowing them out. I think last night they won by 49 points. It was awesome. Well, anyway, that was my weekend, and last night, just letting that weekend carry over into Monday, watching the NBA playoffs. Very, very enjoyable. I really loved it. All right, so today, let me tell you, got a great show for you today. Today, going to be bringing on Deirdre, who's going to be coming from Atlanta, in the Atlanta area. She's going to be on right after our first break. She's going to be coming on, and she's going to be speaking about insurance and the different programs, the different opportunities that might be available for those who might want to get into the business, or for those who are seeking insurance and various products that are sold by those agents. So she's going to be on coming up right after 3:30. And then after 4 o'clock, I have a gentleman that a lot of you really need to tune into, and he's going to be with me for a couple of weeks or so. Mr. Carter, Mike Carter, and he's coming from the San Francisco Bay Area. This gentleman is very sharp, and he's very good when it comes to alternative funding sources. And, I know last week we were talking about some of the impediments, some of the barriers that prevent entrepreneurship or preventing people of African descent, mainly here in the U.S., but really throughout the whole diaspora, from being able to take businesses and to take their ideas and concepts to the next level. And funding, we all know that is one, just not having access to proper capital. And so anybody, if you are thinking about pursuing a business, or you need funding, or if you know anybody who needs funding, hey, contact them and have them to tune in and that's, again, like I said, it's going to be starting at 4 o'clock. And for the next week, and just depends on how Mr. Carter goes, how he's able to disseminate and get his message out, because I don't want to rush him. This guy is good. I've been in tune and been dealing with Mr. Carter for a few years, and his message needs to be heard. And so therefore, I am not going to rush him. And as long as he's got more to say, I just think that, you all should tune in, and anyone else who's thinking of pursuing business, or they're thinking entrepreneurially, they need to tune in so that they can hear what Mr. Carter has to say. All right. With that being stated, what I want to do right now is just do a quick recap. I want to rehash some of the things that we spoke about last week, some of the things, that were discussed here on Business in Motion. Now, again, keep in mind with Business in Motion, this happens to be a program. Business in Motion is a program that focuses on business and entrepreneurship with an African American perspective. So it's very different. It's a very unique program. And some of the things that's going to be brought are going to be new ideas, new concepts, and some are going to be proven ideas and concepts. But all of them are going to, the efficacy level should be relatively high. And so, just a very unique program. What we discussed last week, one of the key words, entrepreneurship. Now, what is entrepreneurship? Let me tell you this. When I was growing up, I never heard the word. And just being honest with you. And that word, I can remember, I think there was a magazine that came out that was called Entrepreneur, because I don't even know where the word derives from. It sounds French or something. It doesn't sound like it's English. But anyway, I hadn't heard that word. Everything was business. We talked about business, mom and pop business, large business, Fortune 500s, everything, but not the term entrepreneurship. And I think, on the other hand, it could be something that kind of derived out of America. I guess what I need to do is just go and do some research on that myself, the genesis of the word entrepreneur. But one thing that I can tell you is, after hearing the word and it just caught on, and it's this whole idea, and it's kind of unique for people living in America, because this freedom, the freedom to be able to do, the freedom to be able to conduct business, the freedom of just being in this market system, there are certain liberties that people here actually had or were able to utilize. And you'll find that term is, well, I won't say synonymous, but it's very popular when you're talking about American business and everything, simply because, as mentioned last week, there is so much entrepreneurship. There are so many innovations, so many good ideas and concepts that have come. They were actually born in this country and derived, and they're kind of across the board. You understand what I'm saying? Not just, there's a lot of things that the colonizers, I like using that concept, were able to actually do. And, some of the things that they do, obviously, I don't agree with when it comes to exploitation of others and, forcing others to work. But that was entrepreneurship. Just being honest with you, that was capitalism at its worst. However, it generated a whole lot of money for a lot of people. However, here in America, still, you had entrepreneurs from probably every race, ethnic group that's here. And, we're going all the way back. And I think one of the first millionaires, female millionaires, happened to be an African-American lady by the name of Madam C.J. Walker. And Madam C.J. Walker, she was able to make, if I'm not mistaken, it was the hot comb or the straightening comb, so that the women could use it and kind of assimilate more so to the larger culture. It was this whole thing of trying to make themselves appear more like that culture. And so she created this comb or made it, put it out there and sold it and made a whole bunch of money. And she was able to figure this out. And this goes all the way back. I don't even know when. I think maybe in the 19th century was when this was created. If not the 19th, it had to be early 20th, but I think it was 19th century was when Madam C.J. Walker was doing her thing. And so, anyway, when you're just speaking of an entrepreneur, I want to repeat this. What a true entrepreneur, from what I have learned, is an entrepreneur is the person that has the ability to be able to make an observation of a place or situation or thing. And with an observation, they can see that there are voids, there are things that aren't there, they're missing, and they're very much needed, very much needed. And that entrepreneur will go into his or her mind to come up, to develop and derive at some solution. Now, obviously, this is being first, you conceive the idea, you come up with it based on your observation. And then second, you're going to put this on paper and you come up with a plan of action to fulfill that void or to bring product or something, to the marketplace. And in return, and what you're expecting to get is a large return for what you've done. Simply because with entrepreneurship, again, with the market system, you could say the two are kind of synonymous, is that you are compensated in direct proportion to the amount of people that you are able to help. Okay, so, if you put something out there, if you got 100 people that buy it and you net $1,000 per, you're going to make 100,000. But if you got 1 million and then you take it up to 1 billion, well, you can see how wealth is generated through entrepreneurship. And what we talked about last week was based on what I just said, what an entrepreneur does. Okay, they're able to make an observation of problems, voids, gaps, and come up with solutions for those. The big question: why are communities that are predominantly African American, people of African descent, what is the problem? Why are there so many problems that are in these systems? And why aren't we coming up with the entrepreneurs? Why are we not at an early age identifying those, or even, I'll say, okay, even if we don't identify those who should be entrepreneurs, why aren't those who are growing up coming up with the idea that, wow, okay, I see this problem over here, this corner. Okay, it's not cool. You know what I'm saying? It's blight. There's a lot of blight with the housing. There's problems with commerce. Our neighborhood there's trash, there's garbage and everything. Why aren't we coming up with solutions? Why aren't we coming up with the people who come up with those solutions, who can create businesses that's going to correct that and simultaneously get paid very, very well? They're going to generate lots and lots of money because they came up with a solution for that particular problem. Now, just imagine if we had, oh my God, just think of all, and I'm not knocking anything, but if we look at the number of religious institutions that we have in our communities, imagine if you could replace, I shouldn't say replace, imagine if you had entrepreneurship that was the equivalent for trying to get people's afterlife together. What if we had as many of those as we have that's doing that particular thing? And I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I'm just saying, what if we had an equal number of people who were dedicated to improving the quality of life, to improving the conditions? And when I'm talking about improving the condition, I'm talking about getting all the way down to the nitty gritty. I'm talking about cleaning up the communities, getting rid of the trash, getting rid of the garbage, which breeds diseases and so many other things. I'm talking about those who have to rely on drugs, because they're looking for some form of escapism to get away from that. I'm talking about creating jobs. I'm talking about doing all the things that are essential to create a real and true community. My position is, this is the key. This gets right to the core of the problem right there, is we're not producing those individuals who would take the initiative to do it. Now, again, there's all sorts of books and all sorts of philosophies and everything as to why some of the communities are the way that they are, and why, if you go all throughout the world, there seems to be this pecking order or a hierarchy. And if you start looking at it from a racial standpoint, you're going to find pretty much the same in almost every culture that you go to. And what you're going to find is at the bottom, or very close to the bottom, will be those people of African descent. Now, some of the questions: is it a lack of opportunity? I could say definitely not a lack of opportunity. Is it a lack of education? All right. Is that one of the things? Is, just what is the problem? Why aren't we coming up with those? Is it culture? Could it be culture? And it was one thing I spoke about last week about the power. We'll talk about the power of culture because now, from my standpoint, from where I stand and what I feel, I think the culture is key. You understand? And he whose culture is celebrated is going to be the winner. It's going to be the winner every time. And when I'm talking about culture, we're talking about everything from language, what you're speaking. We're talking about your clothing, what you wear. We're talking about the foods that you eat. We're talking about housing and communities, the way that they are put together. So all these things come together to create culture. And what I'm saying is because being in this system and just throughout the whole world, reflecting back on things that happened back in the past and what has been created today, our culture has been disrupted very, very badly. And that's for the African American. I can say that it's true for the Afro-Brazilian. You can say that it's true for the ones in Haiti and in Cuba. All right? Doesn't matter. And you can even take it back to the continent of Africa. Because what didn't happen to us here that disrupted the system happened on the continent. And every country that was over in Africa, keep in mind, with the exception of supposedly two. And I'm saying that because one is supposed to be Liberia and the other one, Ethiopia, are the only two countries that were on the continent of Africa that were not colonized. But one thing I can say, and that is spending lots of time around both the Liberian community and the Ethiopian community, there is a bit of a difference because if you look at Liberia from the standpoint of it being an actual country, you can say Liberia didn't exist until there were people here from the Americas. And who were they? They were mainly a lot of the children that were born through the enslaved women who were sons of the master. And they got this, what they consider to be a special opportunity to be able to go back over into this country, Liberia, and were able to build. So again, with their culture, a little different simply because it's still coming from a culture in which had been kind of forced onto them. They went back and they kind of built Liberia that way. But then if you go over to East Africa, you've got Ethiopia. And Ethiopia is the one country that I can say, no, it really didn't get colonized. Now, there's some bad things that happened in Ethiopia. Don't get me wrong. You know what I'm saying? With the Italians and some of the things that they did. Oh my God. I mean, just terrible. However, if you look at Ethiopians today, and around Washington, D.C., we have probably one of the highest concentrations of Ethiopia in one particular place, probably outside of Ethiopia itself. What they have is a culture, and they're capable of doing things. Their quality of life seems to be, okay. I mean, there's still some work to do. However, still, I'm making my observation. I can see that a lot of them, to mingle in and to integrate into our society, yeah, they wear our clothing and everything. But for a lot of their festivals and things that they actually have, they don't. They wear their clothing. They eat their food. You understand? And I can go back to growing up. If someone said, we're going to go to an Ethiopian restaurant, in which they didn't exist, but even just the thought of it coming from the African continent, that would have been a no-no. And if somebody said, well, I'm going to force you, you're going to eat it, you probably would have had a fight because of what was done, to us on a mental perspective and our perception about the motherland and what it had to offer. However, if you look today, the Ethiopians, still they're a group of people who've maintained their culture because they did not get colonized, which means they maintain their language. All right. And it's just so many things that they have that are the norm within that particular culture that has created lots of continuity, among the people. And it's just evident. You're just capable of seeing what they've done, what they're capable of doing, again, through language, through food, and things of that nature that I think that others could look at. I know a lot of people within our communities have a tendency to want to, kind of knock. They look and they have this thing of, how can we denigrate these other people and what can we say negative about them? I think we have to get away from that and looking at things that are positive, and instead of knocking them, study that and incorporate it. If it's good, if it's working with that group, we need to kind of embrace some of those ideals and everything's ourselves. Now, with that being stated, what we're getting ready to do is go into my first break. All right. And for everybody, I hope that you even enjoy some of the sounds, some of the music that's being brought to you. But I will see you coming up after the next side. And we're going to be bringing on, as I mentioned, Deirdre, who's going to be coming from Atlanta, GA. I'll see you when I'm. Welcome back, listening audience, to Business in Motion. I am your host, Ronnie Lucas, and I'm happy to be here, to be able to serve you and to bring some information that I hope will be of value to you. As I mentioned prior to break, I have my first guest who's coming on, Deirdre, who's coming from Atlanta, GA. And can you hear me? Are you there, Deirdre? Hello? Are you there, Deirdre? I don't know. We're having a little technical difficulty here. 1 second. Let me see if we can't get this corrected. I want to bring her in and let her do her thing and talk about what she's got. So everything's looking pretty good over there, Mr. DJ? Okay, are you there, Deirdre? I don't hear her, so I don't know. Maybe there's still some difficulties. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to talk until our engineer gets this taken care of, what this problem is. Sure, go ahead. Hi, you there, Deirdre?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Okay, I hear you now. There she is. There is Miss Deirdre. So how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very, very well. Yeah, so what are temperatures like down there in Georgia?
Unfortunately today, we're having a little bit of rain. We're due to have some thunderstorms, but that's quite typical of Georgia and the Atlanta, Georgia area.
Mm-hmm.
You can go through all 4 seasons in 1 week.
Wow. Okay, I got you. Well, I think it was raining a little bit right here in Baltimore when I came inside of the studio. It was raining a little bit, so
okay.
we're kind of equal there when it comes to that. So, yeah, but this is very good. And I just want to, again, just thank you so much for taking time to come on to my program. You're actually the second guest that I've had. I mean, this program just started last week, and so you're my second guest. And just very happy to have you on. So, Deirdre, tell me a little bit about yourself. You know, where you're from and, just what you're about. Hello?
Informing people. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I do hear you now. It had dropped out again, but you're back. Go ahead.
Okay, great. I was just saying thank you for having me. Just a little bit about myself. Again, my name is Deirdre. I do reside right outside of the Atlanta, Georgia area. I'm originally from a small town in North Carolina, but, just life and different events have brought me on to, be a resident of Atlanta, Georgia for about 8 years now. So,
all right. Very good, very good. And so about your business now, tell me a little bit about your business and, what you do.
All right. Well, I do work as an independent licensed insurance broker here around Georgia. I'm also licensed not just in Georgia, but Maryland and Virginia as well. And because of the advocacy and some of the ventures that I'm partaking of, I'll eventually be licensed in over 20 states. I decided to get into the insurance industry business because, unfortunately, because of past relations with different insurance companies when it comes to the relations between blacks and the insurance companies, it has created a huge misunderstanding. And unfortunately, we as black people have begun to not value ourselves the way that we find white counterparts and other races that value themselves whenever they are purchasing insurance. So I decided that needed to change. I definitely think that we as black people need to know our worth, understand our value, and definitely understand the different opportunities that having insurance and an insurance policy can bring for you as well as your family and any other beneficiaries that may be in the family.
Got you. And
And just to kind of piggy back off of your show from last week and just some of the things you were speaking on earlier, uh, I am an entrepreneur, so that is, just one of the things that if you were to decide to become an agent, it does offer you opportunity to be for entrepreneurship. So that's just one of the, things that you can find with this agency, with this industry.
got you. And so tell me, like, if a person wanted to be an agent, I'm assuming that's what you refer to as agents, insurance agents. What does it take? I mean, what are the prerequisites to becoming an insurance agent? And is it the same throughout the whole country?
Well, no, it varies depending on the state that you reside in and the state that you're going to decide to actually work in. But
Yes.
typically, you're going to have to take a class for insurance depending on the type of insurance that you are interested in, selling and representing. You'll take a class. You have to take a state test. And of course, the states, they love to get their fees, so there are some fees incorporated into taking the class and also getting licensed. But typically, those are going to be the 3 steps that you would have to have in order to receive a license.
I see. And like, what sort of time frame does that typically take? Let's say if one is, just average, not just in it trying to rush through it, but on a typical time frame, an average, what would it take to go from scratch to becoming a licensed agent?
Typically, anywhere from 2 weeks to a few months. It really just depends on the person. You definitely can have it done within, a month or two. That is plenty of time in order to, get your license and everything in order and to get the class. But if you don't want to rush it, again, it's something that you can take your time with, but definitely you can do it within a matter of a couple of months and, be up and running.
Very good, very good. So how does one have to be to become a licensed agent?
That varies depending on the state as well. Some states 18, other states 21, and anything in between. But typically, it's going to be either 18 years of age or 21 years of age.
Wow. So with that being the case, one could maybe even be in college and decide to become licensed and can get out there and if they have a network of people, family, and friends and whatever, they could start to generating some good money and building wealth for the future. Is that correct?
Absolutely. This is actually a really good field, especially if someone is in college, because it does provide them, a means to make money for themselves. But if they're interested in running a business or even learning how to network, which most things nowadays you do need to know how to at least network, this definitely will, give them some of those skills.
Got you. All right, very good. Now, I want to ask you a little more technical questions, some things that, I don't know the answers. And, I imagine there's a lot of people in the audience who might not or might gain some value from this. But can you explain the difference between what is considered whole life insurance and term life?
Absolutely. So both are forms of life insurance policies that can be purchased from a licensed insurance agent in the state of your residence. However, there are some differences and opportunities that they can create for you and your family. Whole life insurance, you want to remember, you want to think permanent, guaranteed protection. It is going to stay in force for the insured's entire life. And again, it's permanent coverage. So as long as you pay the premium on the policy, you're going to be guaranteed the face amount of that policy. Other opportunities that whole life insurance actually gives to a consumer is that it actually grows cash value over time. So the younger you are and the more that you put into it, the more you're able to accrue over the term of your life.
Mm-hmm.
The return on policies, the cash value is a portion of your premium that is invested into a cash value account, and it typically grows slowly on a tax-deferred basis. So with whole life insurance, that's just another avenue that it gives to people. You can plan for retirement, and you don't have to pay all those taxes up front. It's tax-deferred, so you're saving your money. You're not paying taxes on it because the government doesn't come looking for that until you're ready to, pull it out.
Okay.
whole life insurance is also another avenue for people who want to save for things like college, tuition, private school, as well as retirement. So this is a policy that is permanent, so you're not going to outlive the policy. So that's the main thing with whole life insurance. Term life insurance works a little differently, and the key here is the word is term. So it is life insurance that you purchase for a specific term or specific amount of time. And typically with term life insurance, you're going to find a 5-year term, a 10-year term, 15, 20, 25-year term. It provides coverage at a fixed rate of payments for a limited amount of time. The key thing to remember is if you outlive your policy, your term life policy, then you usually don't get any money from that. You typically are going to have to start all over, purchase another term life policy, or you may be able to roll that term life policy into a whole life policy so that you're not losing so much of your funds. But it depends on the insurance company and just the way that your contract is written out.
Wow.
So term life insurance is mainly for paying a death benefit to a beneficiary if you die. So it has no cash value. However, term life insurance is cheaper than purchasing whole life insurance. So those are the key differences with whole life and term life insurance.
Oh, wow. Very well explained. Okay, very good. Because I've, wondered about that for a long time. Hearing these terms, term life, whole life, and all of this and that. So I think you did a very good job explaining the difference. And to me, what it sounds like is what you're saying is with whole life, it's kind of like a joint policy almost. It's like you've got your insurance, but you also have a forced savings plan. Is that correct?
Right, because again, whole life insurance does accrue cash value over time.
Mm-hmm.
So it can be looked at as a different sort of a savings plan per se.
Yes.
And it is also a wonderful investment tool for retirement.
Okay, very good, very good. And in terms of like dollar denominations of what, let's say we're talking about a whole life. What is a typical, I guess what you would have to do is just based on the actual consumer, based on their personal financial situation, you come up with a program that kind of works for them. Is that correct?
Right. What I would suggest to anyone interested in purchasing whole or term life is to speak with a licensed insurance agent for your region or a financial advisor, because everybody is going to be a little different. And we typically want to find out what your financial goals are, why are you purchasing this policy, what your budget is, and just different things like that go into the equation. Your health, different things like that can go into the equation. But once you speak with somebody, they'll be able to kind of lead you and guide you into making the best purchase for yourself and your family.
Understood. Now, I have another one of these technical questions, okay, and that has to deal with what is referred to as an annuity. Are you knowledgeable of annuities?
Yes, I actually have a specialized certification for annuities. When it comes to annuities, you want to think fixed income streams. So again, typically if you're going to purchase an annuity, someone is thinking about retirement. What it can do for you is that it gives you guaranteed funds based on how you decide to have them distributed to yourself. But
Yes.
again, this is something that you're not going to outlive if it's planned out appropriately. The funds that go into that account are invested, so you can actually gain more money from having the annuity just from the investments that happen with the annuity. Mm-hmm. And they also provide tax shelters to prepare for retirement. So again, I love it whenever we can, when we don't have to pay out so many taxes initially while we're making our money. Yes. We can put it over here in this shelter, put it over here in storage. It actually can gain more money in there through the investments, but we're not paying out so many taxes out of our check and from the annuity because, again, the government doesn't come looking for that until you decide to start pulling the money out. So that's basically what annuities are able to do. They provide a guaranteed income for the rest of your life.
Now, let me ask you from the tax standpoint, does the government put a limitation on how much one can actually invest into an annuity since they're not being taxed on it at the time that the money is going into the annuity? Is there some ceiling as to what a person can actually invest?
Typically, no, but again, that's going to be something that's going to be based off of your state. So again, you want to speak with someone that represents the state that you are, that you live in, and they'll be able to guide you through all of that. But typically, no, typically you can, put your money in there, and it's just going to be tax deferred.
Got you. So, wow. That sounds awesome. And some of these things I wish I had known about early on in life when I was like in my 20s. You know what I'm saying? It would have been, and I don't know, maybe these programs weren't available at that particular point. But if I had known about these, I'm pretty sure that I would have capitalized on some of these programs. And so I think that it's very important to disseminate this information to make sure that, the younger generation, and when I'm saying younger, I'm talking about those who are maybe, I think this is information that actually needs to be disseminated and needs to be made available even on a high school level and start preparing. You understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I wish, while I was in high school, I had fallen privy of a lot of the information that I'm getting right now. Mm-hmm. But again, unfortunately, because of the way insurance companies have discriminated against a lot of blacks in the past, they basically have impeded access to coverage historically. We were typically only offered burial insurance, which was smaller, cheaper policies that basically covered the bare minimum. So we weren't given a lot of the opportunities to pass on money and pass on things like that to our children as we passed away, or even just to save using insurance as a tool. And a lot of those practices, unfortunately, did not stop happening until the turn of the 21st century. So, again, this is one of the reasons why I decided that I wanted to work as an advocate, just to make sure that we as Black people understand our value and our worth, and that we don't continue practices like that. Because we are typically the one group who undervalues when we do purchase a policy. We undervalue what our worth is and what we should be passing on.
So in other words, everything you're saying sounds so beautiful, with the exception of this information was not privy to me when I was younger. That could have been by design. They just didn't make the information available to a lot of African Americans. Is that what you were saying?
That is absolutely what they did. A lot of insurance companies will find creative ways not to pay claims to different African Americans whenever it was time for them to pay up. A lot of insurance companies said we didn't want to deal with the Black Americans, period, because after the Civil War, they started rating African Americans differently than they rated whites, even if you had the same position, the same job, you made the same thing, you were rated differently, which means your insurance premium was higher than the white coworkers that did the exact same thing that you did. So those unfair practices have caused a lot of mistrust when it comes to the insurance industry, and I think that's just a lot of times the reason why we avoid purchasing insurance. Although there have been consumer groups that have found Blacks actually purchase, we are more likely to purchase insurance, but when we do, we undervalue our purchase. So someone that makes $50,000 a year may only purchase a policy for $50,000, but someone that is white that makes $50,000 a year, they're going to purchase a policy that's $150,000.
Wow!
So that is
difference.
one of the things that I want to stop.
Yes. Wow. Okay. So you sound pretty knowledgeable about this, and I really like that. I like your energy and everything. Now, just from a system of jurisprudence, it seems like there ought to be something for some retribution. You know what I'm saying? Some of these insurance companies that had these practices preventing Blacks from being able to get the appropriate coverage and everything. It just seems to me that, it's like life has just been so unfair, and it seems that there should be some systems of retribution to correct some of the ills done by some of these large, because these are large. I know insurance companies are very large companies, and they have some of the most money of any institutions that's in America. So, what's your feelings about that?
Oh, yes. Well, just to, there actually have been, again, I said at the turn of the 21st century, a lot of those practices were ended, and there were some of the big insurance companies that did go back and, make good, so to say, with some of the black families that they misrepresented
Oh, that's
or
good to
didn't
hear.
pay what they should have. So we've seen with the turn of the 21st century where, there has been some help in that area.
Mhm.
However, I just don't think that there's been enough. So, again, I would encourage anyone just to, they can contact me or contact someone in their area, speak about, just talk about insurance and the different opportunities it can bring. And just to kind of give you one idea is, Master P, I'm sure everybody is familiar with him. He actually was able to start his business, rap label, and things like that from $10,000 that his grandfather left him. So
Yes.
that's just, an example of the opportunity that was given to that young man at the time in order to build and grow a business that is now worth over $250 million. That came from a $10,000 insurance policy.
And you said that was Master P?
Yes.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that, but that's very good to know. Well, it's the same. It gets back, one of the same arguments. My profession for so many years has been the business of real estate. And, if you go back years ago, they did this redlining, and they didn't, when I'm saying they, I'm speaking of lending institutions, didn't make loans available for African Americans to be able to buy properties. And I'm talking about FHA loans. These are federal. FHA doesn't really make a loan, but what they do is they're backing the actual lender that makes that loan. And what happens is when the African Americans weren't able to capitalize on those veterans loans and those FHA loans, and they had to rent, I mean, they lost out so much, and their counterpart, the white counterparts, being able to take advantage of them. And, they bought into places like Long Island, New York. I mean, that whole place was actually, Long Island, a lot of that was actually built out after World War II when, the veterans returned and they were building these houses. These people got to buy. Well, anyway, the bottom line, those homes that they bought for very little money at that time, insured by government programs, FHA or VA, their equity grew into large sums of money. And those people were able to go to lending institutions and get what they call HELOCs, home equity lines of credit, or just to borrow against those homes to get the capital that was needed. And they started companies. And some of those companies today have evolved to become Fortune 500 companies, Fortune 100 companies. And so to me, it sounds like it's kind of a similar situation here with insurance, where we kind of got taken advantage of. And, maybe these are some of the things that creates what kind of my whole program is about. It's like, what happened and why are our communities the way that they are? And so I think that you've provided some very good information just coming from the insurance, from this particular business sector, as to some of the ills that were done. So, so Deirdre, we're getting close to the top of the hour now. How would one actually make contact with you? How can anyone reach you?
All right. Well, the best way to reach me right now, especially if you need me to look into helping you to purchase insurance, or if you have questions about what you should be asking your agent, I can always be reached at my number 678-849-5160. That is one of the best ways to contact me, and they could give me a call or text me, and I always answer. I can also be reached by email, which is lucas.deidra@gmail.com, lucas.deidra@gmail.com.
Very good, very good.
So, and I would love to assist anybody, answer any questions, and help to guide you. Again, you don't have to be purchasing a policy for myself, but if you just want to know different questions of what you should be looking out for, I would definitely love to help assist anyone.
Okay, very good. So, we're at the top of the hour now, so I want to tell you thank you, Deirdre, for coming to the show, and, I look forward to speaking with you myself about some of these programs. All right.
And I've been enjoying your show, and congratulations on the show, and I'm going to finish listening to what else you have to offer to make sure I get educated in as many areas as possible.
All right. Just pass the word on to have others to tune in, and they can check it out.
Definitely will do that.
All right. You have a wonderful day, and I look forward to our next conversation.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
So, Mr. DJ. We'll be back on the flip side of this after the break, and I will bring on Mr. Michael Carter. Welcome back to Business in Motion, a show focusing on business and entrepreneurship from an African American perspective. I hope you all were feeling that last cut that played Cinco Cinco Seis. I heard that and it's just stuck with me. So I said, hey, let me put this on the show. We're doing a break, but I love that song. But anyway, as promised, I bringing on my second guest, who happens to be from the San Francisco Bay Area, one of my most favorite places in the country to be. This is a gentleman, we go back a ways. We have had numerous conversations, and I've been so impressed with his knowledge of financing and project funding. I said, you got to come on the show, and I don't want to rush you. I want to give you all the time that it will take to disseminate your message, simply because this person is about getting projects funded, and I know that one of the major inhibiting factors, one of the biggest obstacles faced by entrepreneurs is getting funding. And with no further ado, Mr. Michael Carter. Are you there, Michael?
Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon. How are you, my brother?
I am doing very, very well, Michael Carter. It is good to hear your voice. How is everything out in the Bay Area today?
I am blessed and highly favored and COVID-free, thank God.
Oh, my God. Tell me about it. Tell me about it. That is great. The only bad thing is, our Golden State Warriors, I'm a big-time basketball buff. The Golden State Warriors, our team, they're just like the Lakers now, so they're spectators. So California didn't do it. They ain't doing too well this year with the basketball. But other than that, everything seems to be doing well for you, huh?
Absolutely. Excited to be here. Thank you.
Very good, very good. So, hey, just getting started, why don't you just go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, the name of your company, what you do, and all of that. I'm just, like I say, I'm leaving this to you because I feel that your message is vital. It is very much needed. And so I don't want to rush you. If you need to come back for another show, I want to make sure that people hear what you have to say. So carry on.
Most certainly. Well, I appreciate it. Well, let's start by sharing with you a bit about me. I'm actually a financial advisor by trade. Most of what I've done in my career has been more of the Wall Street, stock, bond, mutual fund, wealth management, Series 7, 65, 63, real estate license, life insurance license, long-term care license. So I've really kind of done a lot in the financial sectors, everything from consumer loans to real estate loans to private placements, private capital, and including ran a hedge fund for about a year. And we've really seen the myriad of different aspects of financing clients from all different walks of life. And yet prior to getting my Series 7 in 93, I worked as a loan broker as well as a loan underwriter.
Wow.
So we have a pretty good grasp of what the environment looks like, from the entrepreneur who's starting off to the more seasoned professional who is looking for expansion capital, and in addition to those who are looking at means of completely getting out of debt.
I see. Wow, that was a mouthful. Okay, you definitely have done your work to get the credentials needed to speak to people regarding, sounds like finances, a number of different things, loans, and just getting projects funded and all of that. So I'll let you go ahead. Go ahead and continue.
Most certainly. Well, I think the from starters, for the purpose of this conversation is to really understand why is it so difficult for many entrepreneurs to get funding.
Yes.
It's not a simple answer, but to put it into context, it starts by really understanding that different financiers have different sweet spots.
I see.
And oftentimes, entrepreneurs approach the wrong lender. Lenders extend their capital based upon several criteria, one of which is creditworthiness. Most certainly, there are some lenders to where credit is important. There are other lenders where it's not important, and they will simply lend based upon the business proposition at hand. So the first thing that one needs to do is really understanding what's the underwriting criteria of the lender or financier that you're approaching. The other way that they evaluate how they extend capital is by category. Some lenders will strictly lend based upon real estate and hotels. Others are more interested in energy. You'll have some lenders that are more interested in medical facilities or manufacturing. Other lenders will lend based upon the size of the deal. Others will lend based upon location, whether it's regional or whether it's in the States, North America, South America, the African continent, Asia, or India. So you want to kind of really have an understanding of what regions are they most comfortable lending in. Then you want to evaluate as to whether they will provide debt capital or a loan, or whether they will do equity, a percentage of your company. And then you have some lenders that will do a combination of the two.
Okay.
Debt and equity, what we call mezzanine financing.
Okay.
Then we want to evaluate where are you in your business cycle in relationship to the underwriting criteria of the lender. In other words, if you are a startup and that lender does not do startups, you're approaching the wrong lender. Some lenders are more interested in companies that have received their first or second phase of funding, or they have cash reserves. And then you have other lenders that are more so interested in those companies that are currently generating revenue, and they're simply looking for expansion capital as opposed to startup capital. But for the most part, those are going to be the general categories through different financiers that you want to take consideration anytime you're approaching a potential financier or lender.
Well, now let
or
me
even
ask you this
investment from
question.
the standpoint.
Okay, from a layman's standpoint, okay, because again, there's a number of different sources that you mentioned and avenues one can take in the pursuit of capital. How are they going to know that? You understand? How would one know where to go and which avenue to take and who's funding? I mean, I know you can go on the internet and you can look, you can Google it and all, but again, you don't always get all the information that is necessary. And I'm just wondering, how is one supposed to even know how to get started?
That's a good question. I suppose that the first thing that we want to do is define where you are in your search. If you're a startup, then I would always start by maybe doing a basic Google search on startup capital. SBA is actually a very good resource, but oftentimes people have found that the underwriting criteria for the Small Business Administration is oftentimes as stringent as going through your local bank.
Wow.
And that can be challenging.
Yeah.
There are some companies that will extend money for private capital. You have also your major private lenders and your angel investors. there again, you want to really try to find out what sort of institutions are they supportive to lend to. And once you get to that party, just simply ask them directly, what sort of companies do you support?
Mm-hmm.
And what's your underwriting criteria for those businesses that you invest into? So oftentimes the information on the internet indeed will be limited, but that's where it comes down to doing some digging, getting a phone number, sending an email, and asking them directly, what's their underwriting criteria for capital? And then they should be able to give you some decent feedback to go with.
Now, you mentioned the term about an angel investor. Could you explain what an angel investor is?
Absolutely. An angel investor is oftentimes, more so than not, a very wealthy individual who has the financial capacity to take a risk on you because they believe in what you're doing.
Okay.
These parties are individuals that are sitting on tens of millions of dollars, and they truly have in their heart the desire to be able to help the small, struggling entrepreneur because
Okay.
they recognize behind the scenes that they were there once as well. They've been through the trenches. They know what it takes to be successful. And yet they also understand that no matter how great your idea is, no matter how great your product is, no matter how wonderful you may appear as an experienced entrepreneur,
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, you will have a very struggling enterprise if you do not have the financial capital to launch your business.
Yeah.
And so even if it's seed capital of a couple of $100,000 to get you started, which is enough to maybe buy supplies. It's enough to get your properly structure your business, whether it be an LLC, S corp, C corp, whether it be hiring parties who can help you to put together a professional website. So they're often in place to extend capital for those types of enterprises.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, depending upon the nature and the deep pockets of the angel investor, that couple of 100,000 could very well be as much as 2.5 million. It all depends upon the nature of the angel investor and what's within their sweet spot. They're
Gotcha.
again asking specific questions.
Mhm.
What's their sweet spot? What sort of businesses are they interested in? And just how much are they willing to extend towards your particular business enterprise?
Now, let me ask you a question. You got this very popular television program that comes on with a panel, and it's called Loan Shark. That I think that's what it is. Is that what it is? Loan Shark? Shark Tank. Okay, I'm sorry. Shark Tank. Okay. Yeah. Now, is that what you call an angel investor, or are they a little different? Because what you're saying doesn't sound like these guys and ladies that I hear up there. You know what I'm saying? Are you familiar with it, first of all?
Absolutely. The profile of those parties that are on Shark Tank
Mm-hmm.
can most certainly be considered angel investors.
Okay.
The only difference being is that you have a round table of angel investors sitting in front of you at the same time.
Okay. Now, does that in a real world, does that seem realistic? When one is seeking funding, that they can go to one source and there are going to be multiple investors who might be interested in getting involved.
What's good for television and the networks and the reality of things are two different worlds. The principles of what they do are exactly the same, but you're generally not going to walk into a room of a panel
Mhm.
of angel investors. It'll be more of a one-on-one basis.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Most certainly, one could do a basic Google search for angel investors, and there will actually come up a series of different websites and panels and lists of different angel investors that are out there. And sometimes you'll have to pay a fee just to gain access to the list.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but at least it gives you a name. It gives you a contact phone number or email. It will also give you an indication of the types of enterprises they will lend to or extend capital to. It would also give you the size of capital that they're willing to extend per business enterprise.
I see. Now, is this a service that your company actually provides?
We do
Connecting,
not do, yeah, we do not do angel investing.
you don't even deal with angel investor.
Right. Now we may change that probably within the next 3 months as we open the private bank, where
Could you say
it's
that
our
again? You
goal
say
to
you're opening
actually be a resource for those types of enterprises. And in doing so we will more than likely take an equity position in those in those companies. But just like any other investor, we're also going to have a specific sweet spot by category and also by region.
So let me hear. You said that you all are opening a bank.
Yeah, by September, my company, which is Commercial Cash and Credit, will also be launching a private bank, which will be Commercial Private Equity and Trust. Under Commercial Private Equity and Trust, we will actually serve as the direct lender for businesses for different ventures, whether it be energy, infrastructure, um, disruptive technology, things that will have a micro and macro impact on an economy. Those businesses that have a enterprise that have a focus on clean water, clean food, hotels, resorts, things that where we have a seasoned entrepreneur that knows what they're doing. They've got a proven track record or that of their team. And yet the only thing, and they've got a great idea and wonderful cash flow projections. And yet the only thing that's keeping the business from moving forward is capital. Well, we understand those dynamics. And so we will make our resources available to fund the enterprise 100%. And by the time that we're done, not only will the company be fully funded, we'll also have them completely out of debt within 15 months.
Wow. And you wait a minute. You said that your bank that you all are going to be opening will be able to do 100% project funding?
Correct.
Okay, now obviously, again, I know you put, your disclaimer's got to meet a particular criteria, which makes sense. You just can't give anybody money or loan anyone money for anything. But again, what it sounded to me like what you said, okay, that this is a loan, and it is not where you are actually taking over the equity within the company. Or clarify me if I'm incorrect.
We will actually be taking an equity position in the company. So let me kind of give you a platform.
Yeah, give me a scenario. Yeah.
A level of understanding so you understand what we do.
Okay.
The existing business model when it comes to financing is completely falling apart and has been a complete failure all the way around. Most hedge funds recognize that when they invest into a company, the vast majority of those companies will fail.
Wow.
And it's a very toxic model.
Mm-hmm.
It's a model that is not, more times than not, is not entrepreneur friendly because it's not unusual for these same hedge funds to underfund you And then once it gets to a point to where you need more capital, they'll want a larger percentage of your business. And the next thing you know, they own a major share of your enterprise and can literally vote you out of your own company.
Wow. That's, oh my God. And so this is a practice that is carried on with those in I should say the lending or the investing arena. These are practices that they do. I mean, like maliciously make a smaller amount of funding available to make. And obviously the entrepreneur is going to be very happy. They got funding. They're happy, okay, but not knowing, whereas maybe the investors do know that they are underfunded and they're going to run into problems and they're going to be needing additional capital. And at that particular point, what you're saying is back to the negotiation table, and what they're going to be wanting to do at that particular time is to take a larger stake in the company. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. And I want to make sure that I preface up by saying that not all Wall Street and hedge funds are designed that way, but it is something that is very prevalent in the industry.
Yes.
And then unfortunately they prey on the desire of the entrepreneur who really has that dream to see their business thrive and to get started, that they accept it because they essentially have a noose tied around their neck and they have no other resource for capital.
Wow. And with that, Ms. Carter, Mike, what are we going to do? Let me take this last break here, and we're going to come back on the flip side, and we're going to continue. So, but people need to come and get to this, because what you're saying, it is just paramount for anybody who's seeking funding. All right, I'll see you on the flip side, Mike. And welcome back to Business in Motion, a program with a focus on business and entrepreneurship with an African-American perspective. I am your host, Ronnie Lucas, and I have with us is Mr. Michael Carter. Now, Ms. Carter, Michael, I actually had a call in, and someone is very interested, wanting to know if you could repeat the name of your present company and the bank. They want to know both. If you could repeat that for the listening audience.
Yeah, my existing company is Commercial Cash and Credit, and you can find us at www.comcashandcredit.com.
Very good. And the name of that bank that's going to be opening?
The bank that we're going to be launching by September is going to be Commercial Private Equity and Trust.
Okay. And again, tell them where you're located.
I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area, though our company is actually registered in Delaware.
Okay, very good. That's, pretty much understood. I have companies registered in Delaware myself. Okay, So, okay, hey, Mike, I had to cut you, but I want you to go ahead and continue on with what you were saying. You really, really it piqued my curiosity and everything that you're doing. So carry on, my brother.
Most certainly. So let's back up slightly here, because one of the things that we talked about are the challenges that it takes getting funding. And what we had previously covered prior to the break was being able to identify the right type of financier for your enterprise.
Yes.
But the other reasons why many entrepreneurs have difficulty finding funding is because of a lack of expertise. Any financier or investor that invests into your business wants to know that either you or your team have experience in doing what you're proposing to do. I'm more inclined to place my bet on someone that's been in that line of business for some time, as opposed to someone who woke up one day and thought it was a grand idea, but they've had no previous experience in doing it.
Makes sense.
Another reason why entrepreneurs have difficulty finding funding is because of their lack of a business plan. In my world, particularly one to where my background was in marketing and advertising and worked as a business consultant and advertising consultant prior to getting in finance, was that understanding that one has to go in with a very specific business plan. Your business plan is really covers your business proposition, but you've also done the marketing research where you have been able to identify there truly is a market for your product or service. The number one rule of marketing is define a need and fill it. Most certainly, you're going to have a very difficult time selling gym shorts in Alaska or in the North Pole. So whether you are marketing popsicle sticks or whether you're marketing mangoes or you're marketing masks, you most certainly want to make sure that there is a viable market for your business enterprise and that you target who your prospective buyer is going to be. Another reason why we're having difficulty getting capital is because of lack of collateral. Entrepreneurs by nature are very optimistic, and they're risk takers. If you weren't a risk taker, you wouldn't be an entrepreneur. This is not a 9-to-5 business.
Yes.
And yet financiers think more so from this standpoint on what's going to be, are you worthwhile for it to get a decent return on their money? And if things go wrong, how are they going to get their money back? So be prepared to have collateral or some sort of assurance that gives the financier the ability to sleep well at night so that in their eyes, the perceived risk on you has been minimized as much as possible. The other challenge that entrepreneurs find in getting capital is because of insufficient revenue. Mm-hmm. If you have no existing revenue or existing means of paying back that money, the likelihood of you getting financing is going to be very, very poor. But if your cash flow projections based upon your enterprise are attractive, chances are you're going to have an investor that is willing to invest into you because of your cash flow projections. So most certainly you want to have cash flow projections that once you do get that funding, these are the cash flow projections that we anticipate based upon the sales we are going to generate from the product or service through which you're marketing. Now, as an underwriter, as a marketing guy, as a finance guy, I'm going to ask the hard questions. How are you coming to these cash flow projections? Did you just pull it out of thin air? Or have you truly told me that upon selling so many units at such a price, at such a profit, that based upon that margin, the cost at which you bought the product or the cost that it was for you to manufacture the product and the price at which you're selling it, that's your profit margin. Now it's just a matter of widgets. You sell so much, that generates a profit per sale. Now you're able to adequately calculate cash flow projections. Now it's just a matter of marketing. So what's your marketing strategy? How are you going to reach these buyers? Whether by the internet, whether it be by knocking on doors, whether it be by trade shows, whether it be by networking, whatever it is, it's important that you actually have a marketing strategy, because your marketing strategy or your sales strategy is going to have a direct reflection on your sales revenue. So you want to make sure you have those issues kind of taken care of.
Okay.
The other issue that we tend to have is no exit strategy. You paid, you now gotten the loan. You don't want to be in debt forever. So what is the exit strategy that you have once you've acquired the capital? So we oftentimes run into clients that do not fit the traditional lending model, and yet those are the same reasons why most businesses do not get capital, and yet those are also the same reasons why 85% of new businesses fail within 5 years. So how do we differ? Well, the model that we use is something that we've trademarked called structured collateralized instrument financing.
Wow.
So what does that all mean? It essentially means that we focus on a collateral first model where we focus on working with those clients who have collateral that we can then in turn leverage or get a loan against, and then the cash that we got from that loan is what we then in turn manage in such a manner that the growth of the money itself is what funds the enterprise.
Got you.
If there is no collateral, we bring the collateral. So let's take an example. If we go with the concept that if you had $500,000, you would take that money to your financial advisor and have him grow that money. Well, if that concept works well for a private investor, that same concept also works for a business enterprise.
Okay.
The biggest difference is this, is that we are not involved in the financial markets that involves risk to the principal. The second principle is this, is that we grow the money so fast that it funds the entire business enterprise and has the enterprise out of debt within 15 months.
Wow. Within 15, you mean like 1 year and 3 months?
1 year and 3 months.
Now,
So how do we
what if
make that
this happens
happen?
to be a $50 million? What if that's the amount of money that has to be repaid? Does the same apply?
The same would apply. The same would apply. Because
Wow,
all we're
that's awesome.
doing is basic buy sells. To break it down in very simple terms, let's imagine for a moment that you had a credit line of, we'll call it $1 million.
Okay.
And with that credit line, you were able to pick up real estate,
I can
25
relate.
cents in the dollar.
Yes.
You pick it up for 25 cents in the dollar, you sell it at a profit for 25,000, you sell it for 75,000, you've made a nice little profit.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, if I could do that with the house, I can also do that with mangoes. If I could do it with mangoes, I could do it with tomatoes. If I could do it with tomatoes, I could do it with surgical mask. If I could do it with surgical mask, I could do it with shirts. If I could do it with shirts, I could also do it with bank instruments. So these managed by sales, buying it at a discount and selling it at a profit with our credit line is what allows us to create the capital internally, where we grow that capital so fast, it allows us to internally self-fund the project and have it out of debt within 15 months.
Wow. Look, Mike, that's amazing. That is simply amazing. Now, why are there other companies doing this?
There are, though it's difficult to find. There are some programs that are effective, some that are not. If one has to be very, very careful because you can kiss a lot of frogs and have a lot of failure along the way. Fortunately,
Yes.
we've done all the frog kissing, and chapstick has gone up by 40% only because of our involvement in kissing the frogs.
Okay. All right.
So we've already done all the hard work. We've already vetted the sources. We've already narrowed it down to those parties that we work with directly, and we control all of the entire process so that the ability to execute becomes paramount, and we end up meeting the client's objectives, which is ultimately to get the entire project funded.
Wow. Okay, now I got a question here. Let's say if I'm engaged in the acquisition of let's say it's real estate, and with it, okay, I'm going to say downtown Baltimore. Say I want to buy some buildings there, and what I want to do is to convert those buildings into I want to make a condominium and sell the units out. And with selling, I won't say that my profit margin is going to be 300%, but it's going to be, let's say, maybe 100% profit margin. Okay? Now I'm able to get this property under contract to purchase, but I'm buying. Okay? I'm going to use, I don't know if I mentioned a number, but let's say it's $50 million is the cost. And I'm going to do the transformation. I'm going to renovate, which is going to cost me, I shouldn't say renovate, but I'm going to develop. I'm going to go from 50 million development costs. Let's say that's going to run another 50 million. However, upon completion, it's going to be worth about 200 million. And my objective is to sell those units out. And you figure all is profit with exception of about 90%. You figure about 10% is going to be utilized to cover consulting and brokerage fees and all the different fees. But I'm still left with a very good profit margin. My problem, that's the scenario, but I got one problem. And the problem is, okay, I don't have the $50 million. All right? I understand the real estate game. I understand very well. I've, flipped a lot of properties and everything in the past. Now, I'm willing to partner with a company that has done larger deals. I know you mentioned that you're looking at, I guess, the executive summary to see the work experience or the business experience. So I'm covering my bases there. But the problem, my partner says, look, I'll come in and you can utilize my profile, but I can't put a penny into it. And I'm stuck. I can raise about $100,000. Is there anything you can do for me?
Absolutely. Fortunately, we have a strategic relationship with a network of financiers that specialize in doing exactly what you're proposing.
Wow.
They look at your experience as a real estate professional.
Mm-hmm.
They evaluate the business plan, what you're proposing. They then in turn provide capital to not only acquire the property, they provide capital to do the repairs, and the total lending that they extend is based upon the after repair value. In other words, what will the project be worth once it's completed?
Okay.
Some of our financiers will extend as much as 80% of the after repair value.
Wow.
Which gives a lot of leeway. There are some financiers that will require you to refinance within 24, 36 months. There are other financiers that will allow you to keep the property, keep the loan as it is,
mm-hmm.
or renegotiate the loan based upon the after repair value and the idea that you've either sold units or you're leasing out the units and utilizing that as a means of revenue to pay the loan. So here again, it all depends upon the nature of the project, depends upon the region, depends upon the amount, and all those criteria will dictate the specific financier that we will bring to the table to make that deal work.
I see. And so what seems to be the key here is the after repair value.
You're exactly right.
Okay, got you. And that is one thing I think a lot of people, in the listening audience needs to be fully aware of is it's not always, based, let's say they do have limited funds that they're working with, but in order to actually, get a project, bring it into fruition, whatever their, goals and dreams and aspirations for that particular property, it's not 100% based on what they have in their pockets or in their bank account. If they're capable of contacting and engaging with the appropriate sources to overcome some of the other obstacles, from what you're telling me, the money seems to be almost a non-issue if all the criteria is being met. Is that correct?
It could very well be a non-issue depending upon the project, depending upon the region. Worst case scenario, we'll be looking at 10% down,
Yes.
which is a far cry from 20%, 30%,
Yes.
35%.
Yes.
So even if it's a 10% down, it's still closing that gap quite considerably. And sometimes we can even find a bridge lender that could even resolve the 10%. So we really evaluate each project on its own. We're more of a bespoke or customized financing consulting firm
Yes.
that does not only the strategy to be orchestrated to make the deal work, but we also put an emphasis on helping clients to devise an estate planning and asset protection strategy that in the event of lawsuits, probate, or death, we got the estate that's also protected. So we pretty much kind of view things in a very holistic manner as opposed to giving you a loan and then leaving you on your own to figure out the rest.
Oh man, it sounds like you know your company pretty much has it together. You've done your homework and you understand, the pitfalls and problems that our entrepreneurs are going to experience before they even knew it. And so you already have the solution. I mean, it's like having a crystal ball, looking into the future and coming up with a solution and being able to present it right, at the outset of the business venture.
Absolutely. And that's really kind of our goal, to separate us from the average, say, loan broker that's out there.
That is just amazing. That is absolutely amazing. Oh my God. So, I don't know. You really got my head turning. I mean, the screws inside are really turning, and I'm imagining the same thing is happening with a lot of the people who happen to be listening to this program. So I want you again to repeat it again. Repeat the name of your company and how you can be reached.
Yeah. The name of the company is Commercial Cash and Credit.
Okay.
The most effective way to reach me is actually through our website on the Contact Us page. And the website is www.com, that's C-O-M as in Mary, cash and credit.com.
Got you. Very good. Very good. And you said you can also apply this same principles that you're doing for international projects?
We can also apply the same principles for international projects as well. And that's the beauty of what we do, is that it's not constrained to any specific region. Particularly for those clients that have assets or those clients that are sitting on some cash. Mm-hmm. Whether that cash be as little as $300,000 or $20 million, we have a means that even if we stair step it up, we can even help clients to acquire business capital as opposed to utilizing their personal capital. Not business capital, business credit, mm-hmm. as opposed to using their personal credit, which when it comes to doing business, that's what you want anyway. You want to be able to shield your personal assets from that of your business. And so part of what we do is work with clients to help to create that veil between their personal assets and their business dealings, so that if indeed we do have a situation where the business enterprise does fail,
yes,
at least any money that have been extended to you will stop at the limit, at that veil was isolated strictly to your business and does not tap into our personal assets, such as our home or any other personal assets or bank accounts or otherwise, in the event of default.
And that makes everything you said even better. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to take personal liability for these funds. Oh my God! Look, Mike. I can see your business and your bank just totally exploding because I can just think of so many people. I can think of so many companies right now who could utilize the service that you happen to be speaking of. And again, you seem to be very knowledgeable about this and able to explain it. Now, I want to ask you the question: are you available next week? I want to continue with this if you can.
Absolutely. Be more than happy to come back next week.
Okay, very good. So just put that on your calendar and don't forget, mark it on your calendar because I want to bring you back at the same time, and we're going to continue because one of the main things I want to ask you about is that scenario I gave you about a real estate project where I said if I only got $100,000 and I'm capable of getting, you're telling me that I can actually do a project that's a $200 million project. So I want to talk to you about that more next week. And again, Mike, thank you for coming on. And just the last minute, just give it another blast, the name of your company, and how you could be contacted.
The name of the company is Commercial Cash and Credit. And our website is www.comcashandcredit.com. And on the website there, on the Contact Us page, there's actually a slight questionnaire that allows our listeners to log into, where they can actually give us a brief profile of them as a potential borrower, and also an area where they could even tell us a little bit about their project prior to us returning their call to see if indeed that they have the fundamentals in place that allow us to take their case and for us to be able to help them.
Very good. And with that being stated, we are at the top of the hour, and I got to bring this one to a close. It's been a pleasure, and I look forward to speaking back with you next week, Mike.
Very well.
All right.
It's a pleasure.
You have a very good week. Okay. And to the listening audience, you heard it. That is Mr. Carter coming from the San Francisco Bay Area. Very knowledgeable gentleman related to funding projects and getting financing. I'll tell you before it's all over, we're going to figure this thing out. We're going to have these entrepreneurs who will be capable of resolving these issues within our communities, and they're going to be totally transformed. That is my goal, and I am totally committed to it 100%. And I will say that a bit of advice that was given to me, that the heaviest burden anybody can carry in the United States of America or the rest of the world, as far as that goes, is empty pockets. And with that being stated, I will see you next week. Same time, same place. Ciao.
The all-new WMEG Radio.